So Represent Radio, when we're looking at dancehall music, I want to look back into the history of UK music. We see how reggae and dancehall music has influenced the likes of things like jungle and drum and bass and grime in the modern day era. So I think it's only right we go to an artist that's seen every single decade of those kind of transitions in UK music. Of course, we're talking about the legendary Navigator. Joining us on Zoom right now. How you doing, man? You alright?
Yes, I'm there,
It's
there
good.
and I live in color.
It's good to see you, man. It's going to say, it's kind of like mad that we're in this weird like Zoom thing kind of going on in the interviews still. Like this year has been a bit of a twisted one. What's going on with that?
Well, sometimes things change and then you have to just make adjustments, you know what I mean? And for me, it was always about being able to adapt, and so this situation that we find ourselves in right now, it's about those who can adapt. So I've just been adapting and making it happen somehow. Don't even ask me how, I've been making it happen.
Definitely, man. That's one. I'm glad that you said that with the adaptation of kind of whatever scenario you're put in. Like you managed to make it work because I've seen you consistently just bring out hits over the years in so many different genres of music. You're known as probably one of the most iconic jungle MCs of all time. But way before that, man, your origins have always come from reggae dancehall music, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's sound system, reggae dancehall. When I say reggae dancehall, I mean rubber dub dancehall. So, doom, to doom, to doom, to doom. Rubber dub dancehall and you dance with a woman and,
Yeah.
they, oh, sorry, my battery are dead out for me.
Oh, good, man.
Yeah, my battery are dead out for me. But yeah, man. So me kind of, come from that aspect of the reggae music and sound system. And all of it from before that, even before when we used to rave and we used to go to like more dub music. When we said dub music, roots reggae, the first original roots reggae.
Yeah.
So that's what we used to rave, and then after the rubber dub come in and then we start DJ upon sound, and then by 85 you see the digital dancehall come in, sling thing and them thing there, and that was like the highlight, that was like the peak of sound system, and them time the me and Raga Twins apart. So
Absolutely, man.
Unity and them thing there, and jammies, we have the whole of the jammies tune them before anybody used to get them. So that was like the peak time for we, and that kind of catapulted us into a very where that's a legendary kind of status, because at the time we never knew what we were doing. We were just doing what to do, and it just got to a stage where we were just running things. It was Saxon, Coxsone, Java, and Unity. So you had every section of London, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and that was the four big sound. So we ended up being the top sound in the northeast, and it just ended up that. And now people look back and they're like, you guys were the first guys, but there was guys before us that were doing it that we were inspired by. People like Raymond Naphtali and Pebbles and Just Screechy and these type Bikey Dread, and what I'm saying, these were the guys, Charge and Roy Rankin. These were the guys that inspired us, and then we kind of carried on the torch, and then we just moved into the dance music, as in acid house and hardcore, and then finally jungle, and that's when we became who we are today.
Yeah, well, definitely, man. It's incredible to see kind of the history of UK music as it transitions. Like back when we were doing the Windrush Celebration show, we would kind of tap into how many different styles of music have influenced things going forward. Like you look at modern day grime music, for example, you can see that same sort of chat style from guys like Uroy, for example. And I know things like that have kind of carried through. So for you in the 80s, when you were really kind of like starting to kind of like break the mold in music, I'd say at that point, like how was the sound in London through the 80s sound system culture like at the time? Like how did people kind of make these parties and make these movements happen?
It was an extension and a progression, like an evolution from the dub sound systems into the party sounds and the rubber dub dancehall sounds. So we were raving to the old dub sound systems, and then when the rubber dub came, we started to actually DJ on sound. So it never really changed that much. It was just the music that changed, and then the people who were coming changed, because instead of it being more of a Rastaman thing, it was more like woman, man, everybody are dressed up nice. You have blues dance, you have house party, you have community center, church hall, school hall, town hall, every type of venue that we could get to rent. we used to keep a dance in there, you know what I mean? And then you have your blues dance in a old derelict house or a house party in a somebody house or a council flat or something like this. So the music just kind of just evolved, and we evolved with it. So but the parties were energetic and a lot of dancing and, you know, man to woman thing. But then when the digital dance come down, that's when the hype came.
Yeah. So when you hear them like Jammies Productions and things like that, you're saying all the Sling Tang rhythm and what's it, 85, I think that kind of came through.
Yeah.
So 85. That kind of changed the game. So I know one thing, I remember actually reading some previous interviews with you, and I remember you saying about the first time you heard We Are IE, that old school kind of tune, that bass line was one of the things that you were like, that's something new that I want to be a part of. Like, so did you have like a definitive moment when you first started hearing hardcore and jungle where you were like, do you remember the first time you heard that sound and then wanted to be a part of it?
So originally, Ragga Twins brought me into the whole rave scene, and I was doing a lot of stuff with them, touring and being their hype man. And during this period of time, it was the ending of Acid House going into hardcore, and then jungle came along. And during that time, the two tunes that really stuck out to me, the two biggest energies that I felt that made me feel like this is it now, was We Are E and 28 Gun Bad Boy by a guy called Gerald. And those two had the B lines. And from I heard the bass, I was like, right, this is it now. You know what I mean? The reggae, the bass line is coming to the music. But before that, it was kind of like bleepy, and I never liked the bleepy stuff. You know, it was kind of identify with it. But I could feel the energy in the parties, and I was like, yeah, you know, this is some hype thing. But I didn't understand the music until I heard the bass line. And when I heard the bass line, I was like, right, I need to get on the mic.
Yeah.
And the only way I could do that, because at the time I couldn't get onto no parties, was to go on the radio. So I went on Cool FM, and that's what blew me as navigator. And then I started to get the bookings.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely like kind of what a lot of people would always know you for from the Cool FM days, man. Like even now, that just the word Cool FM is something that just sits out there for everyone to know. That's like the origins of British music, and it's kind of influenced so much of British culture. So for you, when you first heard those bass lines in the early sort of, I suppose it was Acid, it wasn't even jungle yet. Was that like kind of something that reminded you of the classic rubber dub bass lines you used to hear on the big sound systems as well?
No, it didn't really remind me of anything that I heard on sound system. It just brought back the reggae influence, which is bass line, because we were used to hearing bass line. I was used to rapping or chatting over bass lines, and because there was no bass lines in this music, most of the music was being made with the producers, and they were taking the vocal and then remixing, not really remix it, reformatting it into this new sound. But as I said, I didn't like the actual music itself. It wasn't something that really influenced me. It was just that I could see a change in UK music, and I could see that it was time for us to step into our own as MCs, as UK MCs. So having said that, the natural flow to move with was this new music that was evolving, which evolved from Acid House into hardcore and then into jungle. And that really defined and gave the UK its identity, because before that you had hip hop, which was American, and you had reggae, which was Jamaican. And the UK guys, you know, Rodney P, the Black Twang, these type of guys, Roots Maneuver, were the hip hop, ragga hip hop, even Rebel MC, ragga hip hop. We were sound system and straight reggae, but we were still following that Jamaican style. Being from Jamaican background and Jamaican heritage, it was normal for us. But we're born in the UK, so we're looking at, well, we can't compete with the Jamaicans, we can't compete with the Americans. How do we find our own groove? And then when the dance music started to go into the jungle, it was like, right, this is it now. And that's when I said, I need to get on the mic. And then as I got onto it, I started that was when I really got the chance to record music and start to become the artist navigator that I am today.
That's really interesting you say that, because I remember reading an interview with Shy FX, who obviously everyone knows is one of the most iconic drum and bass producers in the world, and he was saying the thing that influenced him back, he remembers from being a kid and being a child, being put to bed early when there'd be house parties, his parents being having house parties, and they put him to bed upstairs in a room, and all he could hear was like that boom boom through the walls, and those bass lines were the things that he always remembered. He doesn't know the tunes at the time, he just remembered hearing the bass lines through the walls of the house, vibrating the house, and that's what influenced him as a drum and bass producer. So it's kind of interesting to see that you said the same thing. You could see that the Jamaican guys were doing their own thing in Jamaica, so you went to carve your own lane and make a new sound, and I feel as if obviously the early producers like himself done the same thing. I think it's quite interesting as well, because obviously drum and bass and jungle, the breakbeats come from breaks, funk kind of music, like those breakbeats you hear in a lot of funk and soul music, and that's where it all came from, sampling. So how was it for you to one day then go to support James Brown live, as a lot of drum and bass and jungle came from his drum breaks?
It was crazy. I was touring with Ragga Twins, and we were in Oslo in Norway, and we were playing as the support act in a ice rink.
Wow.
It was a huge place, you know, could hold about 25,000, I think, easily, but it was a good 10,000 in there. And just to stand there and watch him do a sound check, and him just, when he went like that, it was like you put a needle on the record.
Yeah,
that's how
perfect.
And while they were doing their sound check and everything, you would just see him start pointing at people like this and doing that. And then the manager told us that every time he pointed at someone, he was docking them $5.
I've heard this. Someone told me this same story. Apparently, like in the peak, like back in probably the 60s or 70s, he would do that. If someone in the band slipped, he'd point at them and go like that, and that means he's just docked $150, and it's just like that every time he does it. So you saw him doing that live, just in soundcheck, not even in a live performance?
No, we just saw the sound check, and then we were, and the manager was there, like the road manager, and he kept saying to us like, oh dear, and we were like, what do you mean, oh dear? And he was like, every time he's pointing at somebody, they're getting docked. I mean, what do you mean docked? Is like they just made a mistake. I actually see him go over to one of the musicians, like a bass guitarist, and take the bass from him. I start, or the lead guitar, and get him back there. And I'm like, what? And apparently he could play, several instruments. So it was crazy. And there was a lady there he's one of his backing singers, and she had an accident and lost one of her legs. And she said that, she told us like that after she lost her leg, he paid all the bills, looked after her and her family, and waited for her to get better, so she could come back and perform with them again. So he's a good man. So that was my experience of like James Brown and seeing him do what he does as a lead, as a person leading his band and as the head honcho of his whole get up, and then seeing how he dealt with the clientele and his band members. It was a big eye opener.
Wow, that's like an incredible. Man, I could literally ask you all these stories all day, because like things like that are just some of the crazy things ever. Because you've supported some of the biggest acts in the world, like Lenny Kravitz, for example. You've been on tour with him before, right? It
was crazy. Lenny was such a nice guy too. He came backstage and took time out with me and Fly and the band, and smoked a little spliff with us and was just reason with us. And when we did because what happened was we were touring America, and the band that was supporting Lenny Kravitz, somehow they couldn't do it. No, I think it was Blink 182 or one of these.
Wow.
And they weren't, and then they had a big tune and they bust, and they went off to go and do their own tour. So he needed a support band, and we were touring America, and we got called in for the audition in Minneapolis in the Target Center. And so we went to do this audition, and we're standing there, and it's just Lenny Kravitz out there just watching us. And I'm
no pressure.
So I'm the hype MC, Fly is the performer. So I said to Fly, listen, man, when we go out there, just treat this like this whole place is a ram. And he was like, yeah. And we just went up there. I was running up and down the stage and climbing on boxes and stuff. And we didn't even get 2 tracks into the show, and he was like, yeah, they're hired.
Just straight away, yeah. Guaranteed.
Yeah, he loved us, man. And, we got on really well. And that was in 1999. We did the Freedom Tour. We had it was crazy, man. It was crazy. We had what was that brand back then? we were sponsored by some big brands and stuff. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember the name of the flipping brand, but I can't remember it. But it was like big sponsors, and we were doing like amphitheaters and you know, arenas. It was, you know, stadiums. It was crazy, mad amounts of people. We did like 9 dates with him, and it was a big experience for me because at that stage of my career was like the most prolific stage of my career, performing to the biggest crowds. We did 30,000 at Glastonbury, and to be performing your songs in front of a crowd that big and hearing them singing back your lyrics, like when I used to do, you know, Warning, you know, this one is a warning. I hear the crowd, this one is a warning, you know what I mean? And crowd just popping off, and live band, you know, you got all the separate sound. You've got a sound engineer on the stage. You've got front of house, totally different experience compared to sound system and compared to the rave scene. So it was a big eye opener, and it was definitely part of the evolution of the artist navigator and the live performance.
Absolutely, man. And it kind of goes to show your versatility as well as an artist, like kind of how you've been able to be a champion in each individual lane of different performance-wise, as well as on the recording side of things. So and that's one thing I'm really excited to talk to you about today as well, because the brand new single that we've had out recently on Mixmaster Jay's production right there, Ghetto Strugglers Rhythm, and you've got the title song, Ghetto Strugglers Lullaby. So that you've gone back to real foundation dancehall sound really on that. Well, I wouldn't even say foundation, it's the new school kind of dancehall sound you've got on that one. And it goes to show that and you've also got the tune Bangarang out right now with Decline, which is obviously huge on the drum and bass kind of like breaks kind of scene as well. So it shows you're versatile on both sides. So for you, man, are you seeing yourself getting more and more back into dancehall again?
Yeah, 100%. You know, Mixmaster is my cousin P Skinner, who's the other producer, where he's kind of the lead producer actually, because he's got the technical skills, you know. So and Mixmaster is more a vibes man. And I'm just a vocalist that when I hear a good beat, I instinctively just gel into certain elements of it, and it just leads me, because I write to music as opposed to just sitting down and writing lyrics and just have some bars. Like a lot of artists, they just got songs in their head. So when you would hear somebody, you know, they hear any rhythm, they just jump on it and do what they're doing with that lyric. With me now, when I hear the beat, it influences me, and it gives me the song. So when I heard Ghetto Strugglers beat, which originally was called Bad Mind Rhythm, and I wrote Ghetto Strugglers Lullaby, which is indicative of what's going on, you know, is the energy of what's going on right now with the virus and, you know, the lockdown and everything, and just speaking about, you know, this is a blessing and it's a lesson at the same time. So that's how the song was constructed. And because I was saying Ghetto Strugglers Lullaby, them just changed the rhythm and call it Ghetto Strugglers Rhythm. And then because of Mixmaster's connections into the music industry, we got Galaxy P, we got Uranimu, we got Bada General, and then we're working with a white Austrian artist called Bandulu, who's very strong vocalist as well. And it was Mixmaster really that called me one day and said to me, listen, you know, you have to come in at the dance hall, you know, because we know say you can't manage them rhythm. Enough of the new artists, them and the young artists, they've no lyrics and them no message in them songs. So we want something, you know, substantial upon the rhythm, them and them way. So that's the reason why I kind of get back in it. But if I'm honest with you, Lion Dub is a man that's into his dancehall as well. I've done a few tracks with him, dancehall, but just one-away rhythms on my album Alignment. And that kind of set the tone and the energy. So when this came along, I was already doing dancehall, but it just made me want to go to another level. And we've had a crazy response, man. It's been an amazing vibe just coming back into dancehall and doing a track like this and getting the love from people like yourself, Rodigan, and a lot of the big selectors and main man them in, you know, UK reggae dancehall.
Well, you know, we were playing it. I think we've even played it before the release day. I think Mixmaster Jay sent it to us maybe 2 weeks before the full rhythm had dropped, and straight away I was like, that tune right there. I was like, it's got everything we need. We've got lyrical content, but we can play that in a dance and still shell it down with that one, man. Once the dances start happening again, then we'll definitely be playing it in there.
Yeah. Respect, King.
But looking back to the kind of like the origins of where you kind of got that sound from as well, because it's so good to hear you on a rhythm like that as well. But I know that you've kind of got from living and working through so many decades of UK music and Jamaican music too. You've heard so much as an influence. I want to always speak to the guests on the show, find out what the kind of influence and tunes were for them that's influenced the style that they have today. So I always ask the guest on the show to be the selector, pick 5 top tunes. So have you got 5 tunes we can roll with today?
So the first one would be Johnny Osborne.
Yeah.
Nightfall.
Already, that's like straight away great way to kind of start off the top selection. So for you, you send Nightfall by Johnny Osborne. Do you remember the first time you heard this tune?
I think it was Rodigan.
Wow. On
Reggae Rockers, when he used to play on Reggae Rockers Capital Radio every Saturday night, and I heard, it's just the B line, it's just do 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 do, and just I used to be so into dub and this live mixing thing that all them producers, Scientists and King Tubbies and these guys used to do. And when I heard that, and then just Johnny's soulful voice, even though he's a very conscious and he's on a Rasta tip, he still had a very fragrant, very soulful voice. So nightfall, when I'm with you, I'm merry. And I remember them times there, Walkman just came out, and I used to ride a push bike. I used to love riding push bikes. So I used to have my headphones in and I'd just ride the bike and just have, that was for me, that was the energy that brought me into the parties and gave me that reggae, that affiliation and that connection to reggae music, because it's the bass line. As I said before, when I came into the dance music, as soon as the bass line came, I identified with that. But Johnny Osborne and that whole dub era, that was one of my favorite tunes ever. What's
your second pick on this one?
Second pick would be Dennis Brown, Revolution.
What's so important for you in that one, Navigator, from that tune?
That was my introduction to dubplate culture.
Wow.
That was the first dubplate I ever saw, a 10-inch press, black, with the label, and it just had something written on it like Revolution with some X's and something. You know how them, people back in the day, because people didn't want the other selectors or the other sounds, because they used to come and peep and look and see what you're playing. They used to tear the label off or draw all over it. So I just remember seeing this dub plate and they'd put it on it, be all crackly, Yeah. They said it, da, 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 doom, 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 doom. And I'm just like, yo. So this is before Revolution even got released. I knew about Revolution because our Sound Face one had a dub plate. So it was a very meaningful track in terms of being a dub plate. But then the message in the music, and for me, Dennis Brown, away from Bob Marley, Dennis Brown is my favorite singer ever. I mean, in reggae, but as a singer, period.
Absolutely, man. He's incredible. So you were saying that you had that on dub before that ever came out. Did you ever get the chance to meet Dennis Brown throughout the years before he passed?
I did, actually. One time I was up at Stamford Hill at Synergy. They used to coordinate a lot of the big, like reggae Sunsplash and that. And I was in the office one day with some people that I knew, and walked into the office, and he was just sitting there on the sofa. I'm like, yo, Dennis Brown. He say, yes, man, everything, bless. And he say, yeah, man, everything bless. And he was just easy, laid back, big spliff there, just chilling. And we was reasoning for a little while. Not no big personal reason between me and him, but like there was other people there who was speaking. So that was the only time I ever met him. I've seen him perform before, but that was the only time I ever met him. And he came across as a nice person, very humble and very friendly.
Yeah. Wow, man. Honestly, that must have been amazing.
Yeah, man. He was an amazing singer. His vocal range was ridiculous. He was like in the Black Echoes chart back in the 80s, man. He would be the top 5, in the top 10. He'd have 5 tunes every week.
Yeah. He's still, to this day, seen as an absolute legend of reggae music, and he will forever be known for that as well. Like, definitely an artist that I wish that I'd got the opportunity to meet or see him, but I think I was maybe a few years too late into the game.
It was him, Gregory Isaac and Sugar Minor. They were the 3 at that time.
Mad. I literally, I've got a box of 45 at my feet right now, just like stacked up with their records right there. I still draw for them now. If we're doing like a reggae party, man, those are 3 artists that absolutely have to be drawn for.
Of course.
So we're talking about artists we've got going on right now for your top 5 selection. That was a wicked second selection you had there with Dennis Brown. So what are we going on for number 3?
Number 3, Beres Hammond.
Wicked. What tune do you want to go for?
Tempted to Touch.
Anthem right there. Oh, this is an absolute anthem. Let's jump into this one. What a tune that is, man. That is something that I still hear in every reggae party to this day. What was it for you that's so important to you, and why do you think it stayed this like long time classic that always gets played?
I think Beres Hammond is one of the best singers from Jamaica, period. Like, he's such a accomplished songwriter. He sings ballads. His voice is so unique. And the first tune I remember hearing from him was being in a dance and hearing, you know, what one dance can do, you know, doom, do 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 doom, do doom, doom, you know, and you know, there would always be girls there. You're dancing with the girls, and it was just it just made complete sense. It was like so relevant to how we used to rave, you know, and so that's when I first heard of him, and after that I just loved his music. But Tempted to Touch was like, that was the one that kind of just like blew my brain. I was like, no, this guy's next level, you know what I mean? So always loved Beres and have a very high respect and admiration and regard for him as an artist.
His career is still strong enough today as well. Like, I know I get emails from, we're talking earlier on before we went on air as well, about how influential sound system culture is in places like Germany. And I know a lot of the German sounds, they send me WhatsApp messages all the time when they've got dubplate sessions. And he is still one of the most expensive artists in the game right now. Like, his voice is just as good as it's always been. Yeah,
and he would definitely get the requests. There's no doubt. Still singing bangers, you know? Still sings heavy tunes.
Absolutely, man. He's an absolute legend, that one. So speaking of legends, let's go into your 4th pick of your top 5 here, man. What you got for us in this one?
I'm gonna go to, rest in peace, the big Don, Frankie Paul.
Yes, man. The Jamaican Stevie Wonder, as he's known as.
Yeah, man. Jamaica Stevie Wonder. Sarah.
Let's do this one. Frankie Dancehall Paul right here with Sarah. So what was your first memory of hearing that tune? Do you remember kind of like where you were first hearing that track?
I was definitely in a Unity dance.
Mm-hmm.
And Unity was a sound that had all of the Jammies music. So when that rhythm came out, it was like, yeah, this is the one that everybody kind of, same thing again with dancing with the girls and lovers kind of a vibe. But with Frankie, his voice was so baritone, and the resonance of it, that's what stood out to me. It was almost like a newsreader singing, and he just hit the notes every single time. The songs were simple and easy to sing along to, and I suppose that's why it had such a big effect on us. And he never sung any song that you wouldn't play, because everything he sung was gold, you know. So I can remember when he first came in around 1980 with a tune called Warriors in the Dance. That was the first time I ever heard one of his songs, and it was just as soon as the tune dropped, you just straight away, you just start moving. Everybody start moving. You feel the energy, and then, you know, many wheel ups. You know what I mean? So big up Frankie. You know, rest in peace, the General, because, you know, he was definitely an iconic singer from Jamaica. Even though I know, you know, in his passing, he didn't get the respect that he should have. There's no denying his talent and the effect and influence he had on reggae music during the 80s.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you said, it's so weird that you literally said as well, because my first time ever hearing him was Warriors in the Dance, but I heard it from the Jungle records in the early 90s. It sampled the original version that you were talking about in 1980. So it's funny because obviously that was kind of the era when you were really blowing up in that Jungle era in the early 90s to the mid 90s, and that was like the first time I even heard his voice. And even then, I didn't know who he was. I just knew it was a sample. I think it took me years to find out even who that was. But it's funny you say it's that voice that stands out, and you will always remember that Worries in the Dance, Worries. Like,
yes.
Yeah, that's the one that comes through.
Maddest thing.
So while we're talking about these absolutely iconic artists, I know you've got a wicked 5th selection here for your top 5, man. So what are you going to go for as your final pick on today's show?
My final pick, 1 second, I even forgot it. Capleton.
Yes.
A Day Will Come.
Absolutely iconic tune there. There's so many bangers by Capleton as well, but I'm glad that you went for that one, because that's actually one of my personal favourites by him. Navigator, man, like, what was it that drew you to that tune right there?
Capleton was somebody before he turned into the Rastaman, you know, into the Rastafarian faith, and he was doing a lot of Badman tune and a lot of slackness, but it was his voice and the energy that he had, you know, like, you know what I mean? Them not like me, I mean, I like them. Them are enemy, me and them not friend. You know what I mean? And I think it was top of the class or top of the chart. I can't remember.
Number one on the Look Good chart.
Yeah, number one, you know, they look good. Yeah, you know. So that energy for me was already like amazing. And then the music was getting a lot of negative feedback because of the slackness and because of the way how the music had gone during the late 80s going into the 90s. It just went in a different direction. And there was he was one of the first artists, him and Sizzla, that sort of went into the Rasta faith and started to bring back the culture and the roots to the music. And he always stood out on that first album that he dropped, man. I was like, damn, like, you know, you saw the transition and that made me respect him highly. And he's got a strong voice. He's very strong lyrically. He's got a format to the way how he does his thing, and he executes it perfectly every time. So he's a big influence for me as a DJ, but also the singing. So my whole thing is that I could always sing because I came up on sound systems with a gentleman named Festus Irie, and he was like, you know, a singer. He would chat, but he was more of a singer. So he taught me how to harmonize. That's why when you see me perform with Boomer, it's not hard for me to harmonize because I actually learned how to sing harmonizing. So listening to Capleton making that transition into being a sing J, so you sing a hook and and even though you're chatting, the lyrics is still melodic. I learned a lot of that energy from Capleton, and that's the reason why I can sing a song like Ghetto Strugglers Lullaby, and me I sing the hook, and then me have a different style I go on in between everything because me know if chop up the style them, you know. And Capleton was definitely a big influence in that kind of way, and so was Sizzla.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Those are some iconic artists, especially ones that have influenced you. And I'm glad that you said about how you can do the harmonization, because when I first heard Ghetto Strugglers Lullaby, I was humming before I even learned all the lyrics to the tune. By playing it more, I was humming your verses and your choruses and the hooks and stuff like that in the same kind of harmony. And it's like that kind of goes to show that's not just you just going for a straight chat flow as well. There is a song there, like a well-written song, and that's something I know that you've always carried over. So you've definitely got the ears to pick out those iconic sort of styles that go on to being the big hits as well. So for you at the moment, you've seen so many different artists pass through the years. Who's the acts that are coming through at the moment that are really making you notice, thinking like, oh, there's some new artists here that are actually doing something a bit different? I
think the one that really stands out to me the most at the moment is TJ, man. He's like really, really. I've actually met him. I went to Jamaica a few years ago with Scaramucci to go and shoot a video, and we were in the house, and you know all these people and were there, and then TJ walks in. I didn't know who the hell he was, and then they start freestyling and doing this stuff, and I'm like, yo, this guy's bad. And then a couple of the guys must say, yo, you don't know, said the man a big artist, and me I said, no, I don't know about him. And them start showing me some things on YouTube and start showing me, and then have this tune and him Busted and all of these things, and I was like, whoa, he's heavy. And since that time, the last 3 years, man, he has gone from strength to strength, and you know, he's definitely one of the top guys that's setting the pace for what the new school dancehall music incorporates and what it entails. That the main people that I would look at and say, yeah, you know, that's how I would envisage new school dancehall to sound. And he's definitely bang on the money with that, man. And in the UK, I would definitely say, you know, Stylo. Stylo, he's come leaps and bounds as well from, you know,
my U days, Channel U days even.
Yeah, you know, and you know, I know that he, you know, has strong roots in reggae. He's Jamaican, and I know his father, Poison Chang. I used to listen to him when we were coming up in the dancehall thing. And Stylo has just got it all, man. He's got the swag, he's got the style, his voice is very strong, he's got very good. He's young, so he's got very good. His energy is current. Yeah. So therefore, the way how he sings his songs is current, and you can see that he puts thought into what he's doing musically. And I really respect what he does, man. I'm an artist, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, man. He's an artist we've always been champion on the show. For me, anyway. I think he might have been. I think he was the second ever dub plate I ever cut as well. So like we've been kind of going all the way back with him as well. So it's good to see that we're kind of all thinking on the same lines. That one, it's good to see what Stylo's doing. And I know I'm not to say anything right now, but I know something really big is coming from him very soon too. So he's going to.
The man will have tune. That the man put out no little tune. I pay a big tune in put out.
He's taking it to another level in the next couple of months, I've heard. So yeah, I'll be shouting all about that when that happens. But I'm not to say anything yet. But I just know something really big is coming from Stylo soon.
Those guys, like TJ, listening to TJ, even Intense, Javilani, Stylo, they inspire me, because for me to stay relevant, I need to be in tune with the hot guys and the people that are leading the new school. That's what's always kept me up to the time and kept relevant, because I'm not really studying them, but I'm watching for everything. So I take elements from all of these different people, from Jamaican artists, UK artists, even some of the grime artists, the Ira is another one that's a heavy, so these people have always, and then you've got people like Mr. Williams as well. He's another person that I really like his style, because he brings you, it's upfront, but it's still that sound system culture, and all of these things influence me, man. I'm watching everybody like a hawk,
mate, and you're standing out with it as well, because like us, we only play music. To be honest, on the Gully B show, most of the tracks that we play are maybe only like 3-4 weeks old at a maximum, because we're playing new music. So when we were juggling with Ghetto Struggles Lullaby, man, that was coming off the back of one of the new school guys who might be like 19 years old in Jamaica. But I put your music right alongside that in a juggling session, man, because you've got the lyrical talent that we need in this style, man, and you're pushing the artists to keep making sure they're lyrical in this stuff as well. These guys aren't making just an easy tune here and there, man. Like, I know the one thing you're really conscious about is having conscious lyrics in your songs, and that's definitely influencing the new breed.
Definitely. And I noticed that a lot of the new guys, they will sing one verse, second verse, and then they go back to the first verse. Whereas with me, I'm not going back to no first verse. I know that most selectors only play half the tune and then they pull up. So they're thinking, no, I don't want to waste my lyrics. But for me, I'm thinking about the guy that's listening on his iPod or listening to Spotify and he's listening the whole tune. I don't want to be repeating nothing. So I make the effort to sit down and construct the lyrics and make sure that, you get the full Monty. What I mean?
Well, absolutely, man. Well, you've been in the game for decades on this one, and you're still pushing the culture forward. You're always making something new happen. So for you, what's your best sort of tips for any new artists coming through now, man? What would you say is the best tip to have the longevity that you've had in your career? What's been the kind of the top things that have helped you?
I think the first thing is you need to look at the elders and learn from them on what they're doing, because they're the foundation. The second thing is to always quality control is important. Make sure your vocals are of quality. Go back and voice it again if you're not happy with it. And lyrically, always trying to push the boundaries, using different words, different slang, different phrases, and melody. Melody and flow for me is very important, because that's what makes you stand out. Mm-hmm. And chopping it up. That's why one thing I loved about Cartel, and still do love about him, is that he's got so many different facets to what he does vocally. Back in the day, if you listen to a Nas album, every single track is just a Nas vocal. Biggie, Tupac, they weren't really versatile with changing up their voices. But Cartel was one of the first persons I saw like, yo, this guy's got about 5, 6, 7 different voices in one tune. And I know I could always do that, because if you listen to any Navigator tunes, nothing sounds the same, because I'm influenced by so many different elements. It makes me do different stuff over every single, and because I'm such I come from a multi-genre background. When I left sound system and got into dance music, I didn't just do jungle. I was doing breakbeat, did a little bit of dubstep, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, back into the reggae, back into dancehall, maybe do a little garage track, do a little, it's always doing different stuff, breakbeat with freestylers. And then I realized I could do this on any rhythm. Yeah. It didn't matter. Drum and bass, jungle, liquid, I could do this on any rhythm, but the rhythms dictate to me how I'm gonna deliver the vocal. And then that makes me go off in different directions all the time. So I think it's important for the new school artists to be diverse and to be versatile, because that's what's the longevity Because if you're just doing the same thing after a period of time, your thing gets tired, it gets boring, and people are like, okay, what's the next thing? But if you're moving with the times and changing up your style, you never get stale.
Absolutely, man. It's definitely worked for you, man. You're an absolute icon in British music right now. Anyone that I know is in music right now knows who Navigator is, and you've proven that through the longevity and being versatile in your career, man. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the Gully B Show today, man. It's been an absolute honour to have you down here to do this call. Where can everyone find you on socials right now? What's the main way of getting in touch with Navigator?
The best way to find me is on Instagram. It's at Navi for real, NAVI number 4 REAL. Same thing on Twitter. And on Facebook, it's just Navigator MC. So actually, I think it's just Navigator. But if you go on Facebook and put in Navigator, you'll see, on the page. Those are the 3 main ones that I use. I don't really use any of the other ones because it's too much, man.
Most people just use Instagram now anyway, so that's the only reason it's on.
Yeah, I just wanted to, before we roll out, I just wanted to big up Mixmaster Jay for his consistent heavy energy, pushing reggae, dancehall music for the UK. He's a hot name right now, definitely leading the way, setting trend and supporting a lot of new talent and new music, which is what you do as well. And I really respect that. P. Skinner, big up yourself, because, this guy is a serious talent, hot producer. He's got rhythms for days. And he's very, very motivated, and he definitely gives me a lot of inspiration. David Boomer, my brother, who's part of the label On This Thing Music, Ghetto Strugglers Rhythm was our first release, and it's done really well for us. So, big things, you can expect big things from us going through. Big up Bandulu and big up Soul Train in Berlin, and all of the jungle fraternity. Don't care where you come from, big up all of the junglists, them Raga Twins especially, because them guys brought me into jungle. And all the sound systems from Channel 1 to Shaka to Iration Steppers, all of them guys have been holding this thing for 4 decades. And I feel very blessed and honored to still be here. And I just want to thank all of these people that have supported me in my career, play my music like yourself, and are about pushing UK reggae, dancehall, and ragamuffin culture, because this is what's really the backbone and the heart of what has come out of the UK. It's the reggae influence and the West Indian Jamaican influence, which is my father's blood and my DNA, and everybody would tell you. So I just want to big up all of those people that keep on consistently putting the work in and making this happen. Big salute from Navi.
Big up Navigator, man. So guys, we're talking about that absolutely huge tune right now by Navigator, Ghetto Strugglers Lullaby. Let's jump into it right here. You listen to Gully B on Represent Radio.